What's up, guys? It's Jacob Brewitt, and so today I'm starting a little series, and I'm going to go over how to produce and mix an acoustic rock song. So as you guys may or may not know, I released an acoustic version of my song "Far From Home" not too long ago, and yeah, basically I just I decided, hey, I want to remix this song as an acoustic. I really love acoustic rock songs. They sound great. They're beautiful. They're very clean. I love that. So, that being said, I made another one. I have this. This is actually gonna be coming out pretty soon here. I remixed my song "Live and Die" as an acoustic version, and today I want to just go over, how to produce and mix an acoustic rock song. So this is gonna be my example. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna hop into this computer here, and I'm gonna show you guys, how I do this. So yeah, let's go ahead and hop over, and we're gonna check some stuff out. This is gonna be the first part of a 3-part series. Today we're gonna be going over the drums, the bass, and my synth pad and orchestral section. And then the second part will be the acoustic guitar and the vocals. And then the last part will be how I mix everything overall and my mastering chain and everything else. So let's go ahead and dive into the computer real quick, and then we'll show you what we got going on. All right, so since I'm mobile, I don't really have my full studio set up here, so I'm just holding my microphone. Bear with me. Hopefully the sound quality is decent enough. Let's just give a quick listen to what I'm actually working with here. Right, so you can kind of hear, it's a nice acoustic rock. It's punchy, being a rock song, but it's nice and smooth too. To incorporate that acoustic, that little bit of softer element into it. So, like I said, today we're gonna be going over the drums, bass, and also the orchestral synth type elements in here. So first of all, let's go ahead and hop into the drums. I'll just show you what I'm working with here. This is the Get Good Drums Modern and Massive Pack. If you guys are familiar with this, it's basically an entire suite. You can mix your drums in here. You can choose from, there's about 6 different kits. And yeah, it just sounds very great. It's very easy to work with, very mix ready. And yeah, so with each of these components, being the drum, the kick drum, the snare, the toms, the cymbals, and all that, you kind of have a nice selection of microphones that you can fiddle around with and get a nice tone. So yeah, like you see here, for all of these, you have overheads and room mics, which you can set accordingly. I recommend definitely messing around with it, and seeing what fits well in a mix. Because what sounds good by itself doesn't always translate well to a mix. So definitely experiment with things. But I'm just going to show you how I do it, right? So this is my kick drum. You have the kick sub, which is the super low frequencies. I have that down a little bit. I don't want to muddy up the mix. My room mics, everything's kind of low. My sum, that's the, your pretty much your overall. That's the loudest, mic I have here, which isn't really not even that loud. The nice thing about Get Good Drums is you have this turbo function here, which is amazing, because this kind of just mixes everything on its own. You crank the turbo up and it brings the life out of the drums. Let's just kind of listen to the drums by itself here, and then I'll kind of demo the turbo knob. I never thought I'd say that in my life, demo the turbo knob, but let's give it a listen. This is just for the kick drum. right? So it's yeah, it really brings out the punchiness. It kind of just mixes the drum on its own. Yeah, so very simple setup here. But there is a lot to go over. I'm not gonna go, completely in depth into the plug-in and everything. I'm just gonna kind of show you what I have going on. Snare drum, pretty simple. You can mix your tone for your snare, like your top or bottom. Your top is generally like the pitch. That's where the pitch of your snare. Excuse the plosive there. Generally the pitch of your snare, which is gonna come through. The bottom will be the snares. That's gonna be your crackle, your snap. Yeah, everything's kind of set up the way that sounds good in the mix. The mono room mic is pretty high. A little bit of reverb just to even out the drum, gives it a little more depth, and kind of cuts out the paperiness of it a little bit. Tom's pretty simple. You get to control each individual tom, the level of it. Yeah, again, everything is kind of a little lower. I like the toms to be more less roomy, less roomy, because when you add too much low end or too much room, then things kind of get muddy. But I have just a slight bit of reverb just to make fill them out a little bit. Cymbals here, pretty simple too. Slight bit of reverb, which is good because you want to cut out the harshness and kind of let them fill up the room a little bit. You can control the hi-hats and the ride individually, which is super cool too. And you can control the pan for most of these instruments, or most of these components too. Like the hi-hats and the ride I have set, panned the way I want them, and as well as the toms. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the Get Good Drums plugin. I go through, and then I program each of these individual hits by themselves. And yeah, that's the nice thing about it. You can control exactly, the way you want your song to sound. So next thing I have is a little bit of a compressor here. I don't know why it's floating. The compressor is nice because the way I have it set up is I have, a 3 millisecond attack, which basically it'll let the transient through, and then it'll kind of even out everything else. Like it'll even out the cymbals, make everything sound a little more glued together. So I have the threshold set so that it just catches that kick drum and that snare, because that's really, you want to let those in so it makes it a little punchy, and then you want everything else to kind of be leveled out so you don't have some weird like volume stuff going on. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the compression. And then I also have a clipper, which is not really doing much. But the idea of a clipper, so this is the Flatline from Submission Audio. It's really nice. It's a super cool plugin. I recommend it. But here it's not really doing much. The idea of it is that it takes your signal, and then any peaks, depending on your threshold, any peaks, it'll clip off, so that way you can raise the volume of everything else. And you can also change the shape, which is the hardness of the clipping, right? So if you have a peak, it's not just a line. You have like a frequency band, or a peak, and it controls how much curve you have cutting off. So if your shape is set lower, like to 0, as you can see this line, it makes it more smooth. It kind of rounds out the sound a little bit, and the hard clipping is just chopping those peaks at that level. It's not smoothing it off. I like to have it cranked up on the drums because the drums are a very transient, heavy instrument, and it just sounds good when you have them like that. But like I said, it's not really doing much on here. It does more on like a heavy metal or a hard rock song. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the drums. It's really simple, not really too much that goes into it. Now let's move on to the bass. The bass, what I use for the bass is the Gin Bass, another Submission Audio plugin. This is one of the best sounding basses. It's modeled after a Dingwall, which if you guys have heard Dingwalls, they sound amazing. The nice thing about this is you have an amplifier that you can turn on or off, and you have 2 channels on the amplifier. I like to keep it off for my acoustic stuff because it makes it sound a little more acoustic. You have the volume, obvious. You have width, which kind of adds a stereo image to it. String noise and muting noise. Those are kind of like the more human elements of it, right? So let's listen to the bass as it is. Right, so it's very simple bass. It's just an acoustic sounding bass, it's blending into an acoustic rock song. So yeah, let's look at you have the width here. Let's listen to it off. Just a plain old stereo image or plain old mono bass track. Let's crank it all the way up and see what it sounds like. Right, so as you can hear, it definitely widened it out. I'd recommend listening to this with headphones because you're not going to get the full idea. But that's what it does. It widens everything. So there's a point where it's too wide and it kind of just gets lost. So I like to keep it around about that 65-70%, whatever. So it just maintains a little bit of that mono foundation. String noise and muting noise. So the string noise is like your fret buzz and stuff like that, or it just makes it a little more human. Obviously, the muting noise when you're muting with your left hand, you get a little bit of sound, a little bit of noise from that. So I just keep those up a little bit to add a little more human element to it. Alternate picking doesn't really matter too much. It's not a fast song. Tone is pretty obvious. Let's move on. EQ. This may look a little funny because I have this nice little peak here, but so let's start off with this. You have a low cut. Obviously, when you have super low frequencies, they kind of mess with your programming a little bit. So basically, you cut out some of that low end because when your computer reads this, it's reading all these frequencies that are super low. And even though you can't hear it, the computer is still processing that stuff. And same with the super highs, the super high end stuff above, like 20K or whatever. So it's just nice to cut those things out because it saves, it saves your computer a little bit of the processing. And so I have this nice little dip at 500. This is something you want to play around with. If you have a bass that sounds good by itself, don't really need to mess with it, which the Gin bass sounds amazing by itself. But generally around the 500 hertz area, you have this kind of annoying boxiness. And so yeah, just play around with it. I just cut it out because it makes it sit in the mix a little better. And then a nice little lift at 100 or 1K. Just bring out a little bit of the liveliness, a little bit of the clang. Pretty simple. Next, another Submission Audio product, which is the Double Tap. It's a bass dynamics compressor, as you can read here. This is pretty cool too. This is good for any kind of bass processing. It's whether it's metal bass or acoustic rock bass or even like a synth bass. So it's pretty simple. You have a low end compression here, like your bass frequency compression. You can control that and crank it up and really control your low end a lot. You have a volume for that for the bass frequencies. You have an overall compressor and then an overall volume. Then you have a saturation, which is cool here. You can basically make it more or less aggressive. So glue is obviously less aggressive. EDM is kind of for more like synth bass type stuff. Yeah, this is the way I have it set up. I have a fair amount of bass compression and then a little bit of overall compression. The volumes are cranked down just a little bit because actually increasing the compression to around this 30 to 40 percent range actually increases the volume, so I just decrease it a little bit in the end. Again, the flatline, again, not really doing a whole lot. But it gives me that option, you know, if I want to mix it a little different or increase the volume or smash down on any kind of transients or anything. Yeah, it's just kind of there in case I need it. All right, so that's the drums and the bass. Let's listen to what they sound like together. Keep in mind, what I'm playing all for you guys is including the master chain of effects, which I'm not going to go over right now, but in the last video of this series, part 3, we're going to go over that in depth. So let's listen to the drums and bass together. All right, sounds pretty good. Sounds glued together and everything. Yeah, so I'm digging the sound of that. Now let's move on to our pad elements and our orchestral stuff. So this is I have a pad here. It's a contact instrument called Ethereal Earth, and it's kind of a funny sounding. As you can see, it's a blend of a temple horn and a guitar pulse. So it's kind of funny sounding, but in the mix it sounds really nice. So let's hear it by itself. Right, so it's kind of weird, but it sounds really cool in the mix, you know. It's an interesting element. You have a bunch of different controls here. The volume I have cranked down a little bit because obviously I want it to sit in the back of the mix and kind of just bring some depth to everything. And then let's move on to the, there's no processing after that instrument, by the way. It's just the instrument. After that, let's move on to the orchestra elements. So here I have a cello. This is from the Versillion Studios Chamber Orchestra 2. And I have the cello, and then I have a violin here. I have them panned a little bit to either side just to give it a little bit of width, make it sound like a section. So let's listen to them by themselves. This is the chorus first. Right, so it sounds beautiful. It sounds amazing. And then, you know, obviously I don't have the level up too high. It's just, you know, just sitting in the mix, giving it a little bit of prettiness and a little bit of, you know, a little bit of harmony. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the drums, bass, and the, you know, like the pad elements and everything. Everything sounds, you know, nice and pretty, and, you know, I kind of have everything mixed to the levels that I want. And, yeah, so I think that's pretty much going to be it for this part of the video. This is part 1 of mixing an acoustic rock song. And I hope you guys learned something. You know, like I said, you know, I have 3 parts of this coming out, and I want you guys to learn as much as possible. And if you have any comments, please leave them below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you have any kind of, you know, questions about anything like this, I'll try to help you out as much as I can. And yeah, so like in the description, like I said, you're gonna have the links to all the instruments. You're gonna have a link to my website, so you can check out my music, my social media page, my pages, and all that stuff. Check that stuff out, and then please subscribe to my channel if you guys want to see more of this stuff. Give it a like, and yeah. So I'll see you guys in part 2, and we're gonna go over the acoustic guitar and the vocals. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.